Well, hello and welcome to another movie review from MBE. John,
Yes.
we are going to
Oh.
follow up our Die Hard review with Die Hard 2, Die Harder. What a tagline, Die Harder.
Yes.
1990 this is from, 2 years after the original, not directed by John McTiernan. He was away doing The Hunt for Red October.
Hunt for Red October.
Rennie Harlin steps into the directorial chair, and it stars, of course, Bruce Willis, William Atherton, and Bonnie Bedelia, and a whole host of other stars, which we will get into, John.
William Sadler.
He is
who's
there.
like
John
fifth
Amos.
billing on this
Yeah.
cast on
Robert
IMDb.
Patrick's in there as well.
The great Robert Patrick. Not so great in this.
No, it's very
And we'll get into that.
very much a cameo from Mr. Patrick. But I'm going to hand it over to you now, John,
Yes.
so you can take us through this review experience
Yes.
to the 1990 follow-up, which a lot of people don't have a lot of love for, surprisingly. I like it. Don't know about you.
Well, Stephen, that's the first time I've watched the movie just last night, so I suppose as we go through this review, I'll give my thoughts in depth, but as a sort of summary for those who have very low attention spans and just want to bugger off, if indeed anybody's watching this. If you're watching it pre-recorded, we've only got one viewer at the moment, that's sad. Well, I'll give my brief summary right off the bat. I thought it was pretty decent, Stephen. It was a sort of classic late 80s, early 90s action movie, sort of big bombastic visuals and stuff like that. There was something palpable about the explosions and whatnot too, much like T2 and Terminator and things like that.
Yeah.
Not going to win any Oscars, and probably didn't win any Oscars at that for storylines and stuff like that. It's not reworking the wheel. It's not like Nolan-esque cerebral storytelling. It's not Scorsese level, but it was pretty damn decent. I can't quite get my head round. I can't grasp the critiques of this movie, including one Bruce Willis, because
it's not his favourite.
Yeah, I mean, it shared some similarities with the original movie, but it differentiated itself enough that I still got some enjoyment out of it. It didn't sort of bring me out of the experience, so this is just a reworking of the first Die Hard movie.
Yeah.
We have to speak about that title though, Die Harder. Come on, I mean, I know it's...
Try harder.
Try Harder. Die Hard with a Vengeance, I think, is another one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the third one,
just some god-awful names in this franchise. It's like, Die Hard, just put a number next to it and move on. We don't have to do Die Harder, it's shit, essentially. But Stephen, one thing that is not shit about this movie is its very interesting start. The first 5 minutes of this movie, we are setting up a very relaxed John McClane in DC. I don't know the exact airport, the DC airport setting, which is going to be the primary setting for much of this movie. He's knocking back whiskies and having a little puff in the cafe area. He's very intuitive. He's looking at bags being exchanged and whatnot, and he's on the ball.
Yeah.
But shortly after that, we get William Sadler's Colonel Stewart. Colonel Stewart, absolutely bollock naked in his hotel room. He's doing sort of yoga and martial art manoeuvres, watching the TV, completely naked.
Completely Billy Bullock.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of
That's a partridge quote there.
you warned me about it before I watched it. I didn't need any warning. I don't care, man. The guy was absolutely shredded, but it took me aback a bit. I'm like, okay, we're getting the main villain completely bollock naked in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Fair enough.
It's not what my creative choice would have been, but look, hey ho, who am I to argue? The man worked very hard for the movie, and he got to show off. The sort of, I don't know, the rewards of slaving his arse off, I presume, for about 6-7 months. Obviously, later on in the movie, he doesn't really. He puts on coats and whatnot. It's a very cold setting, so maybe it was a William Sadler decision. I don't know.
That thought crossed my mind.
I really enjoyed the intro to the movie. I says to you before we come on, they do a superb job of just setting up the premise of the movie, the setting in the airport. John McClane, he's back in the wrong place at the right time, some would say. Lorenzo later on says the wrong place at the wrong time, or was it the general character, John Amos?
Yeah, John Amos, yeah.
He's there, sets up him as the protagonist again. Right away, we've got Colonel Stewart going right into the airport with his guns, laying down the foundations of this operation that they've put into place. 6 months of work, I think the Esperanto character says at some point. And it's just absolutely meticulous. It was like Hans Gruber and his gang of German models stoating into that sort of, what was that building called again?
Nakatomi,
the Nakatomi building. So it's just beautiful. It doesn't muck around. It sets up the primary characters, the setting. Also the wife's on the plane. She's stuck suckling. And then it goes right in and lets us flow right into the action straight off the bat. I loved the intro. I don't know what your thoughts are,
John,
on the intro.
one of the things I noticed about
Stephen.
this film was the lack of credits at the very beginning. It's really just right into it, as you said. Die Hard 2 comes right across the screen, and then we see John McClane's car being towed by that little copper who played Joey Tribbiani's dad. He was also Harry in Total Recall as well, as I recall. I can't remember the chap's name, but you know he's going to be in the film somewhere down the line later on, and he's going to have some kind of relation with another character. It's very clear to see, but I liked the fact that they did 3 sort of mini stories with them. They had obviously John McClane just sort of settling himself into the airport. You had Bonnie Bedelia's character Holly on the aeroplane, so we knew the situation she was going to be in, and also
more mansplaining for a female character.
We talked about that, didn't we? Yeah, I mean
that won't go in the 21st century.
This was 1990,
exactly.
So it was acceptable then. People weren't so uptight about things like this. You know, it's an action film. You know, and then we obviously had the Colonel with his cronies walking. I'm saying walking. They were actually parading right through that airport at some pace, you know. Not very conspicuous in any way. They actually bumped into one of the reporters, didn't they? And he had a few choice words to say to her. Yeah.
No, you can have 2.
Yeah.
F you.
Yeah, the second one's
sets the character up beautifully.
It's a very good line, John. But these films have always had those memorable quotes in them. I'm pretty sure you've got some, John. I hope you've got some. You normally do.
I've got a few.
Yeah. But yeah, the William Sadler character, I've always liked Sadler. You know, I've liked him, you know, obviously his Bill and Ted stuff, Shawshank Redemption, to name a few. But in this... it's not very fair to really compare him to Hans Gruber, you know. It's a totally different character altogether, you know. Menacing equally, but he's more of an action villain more than
he's a blood and guts military man.
Exactly, he's a man's man, you know, and he just, there's no messing with him, you know. I always felt with Hans Gruber it was like playing chess, you know. He was always, you know, try to suss out the opposition, and it was always 5 steps ahead of them. In this, it's more in your face, you know, and I don't mind that, you know. I think for the tone of this film and the pace of this film, it's well suited, and I think Sadler does a very good job.
He does, Stephen. Look, that's something I was going to get into later on, but now that you've broached it, I think we'll just hammer it right now. I loved him as a villain. I primarily know this man as Haywood in Shawshank Redemption, a movie I've watched about 25 times, maybe more. I've not seen the Bill and Ted movies yet. I understand he plays deaf in it or something. It looks more comedic. Some of the shots he's looking very scared or whatnot on their shoulder. So this is a man who's done all sort of things, but I've not seen him play an antagonist until last night when I watched this movie. And look, he plays the part really well. He's got a sort of growl to his voice. He's a shorter man, but he pulls it off. He's got enough charisma, enough presence that when he's on the screen, you notice. And obviously when you're backed with a group of sort of brooding, tallish figures, and then you bring in John Amos and he's in cahoots with him later on in the movie. I really enjoyed it, man. I did say he's no Hans Gruber, but Alan Rickman, nobody, and I mean nobody, and not many people, there's a few, but not many could top Alan Rickman's performance as Hans Gruber. He's an utterly iconic antagonist, probably in the top 10 antagonists ever put to cinema. Just, he's so cerebral, as you says, he's 5 steps ahead, he's conniving, he's sneaky. That moment where he has the run-in with McLean and the kid's on, he's a hostage. He's just a sneaky little shit, a big shit, because he was 6 foot.
He's an Englishman playing a German doing an American accent.
Not very well, mate.
Oh my god, that's terrible.
German accent, much better, schnell, and bitter and things like that. But I really enjoyed Sadler. I thought he was a really convincing villain. He was no mucking about sort of figure. No menacing. Nonsense, no nonsense. He brought down the plane. At some point we'll speak about that, and that immediately sets up this guy. He says that he would bring harm on them. You'll stick by the rules. You'll not step out of line. You'll not try to contact the planes and do anything out of order, or I will bring punishment to you and the planes above. And he does it. And that, again, you need that for an antagonist. You can't have this sort of weak, shitty antagonist who will say something, and then when he's put into a position, he doesn't act out in it. When he acts out in it, it adds so much levity to the rest of the movie. It adds some emotional weight. I really enjoyed him, man. I actually enjoyed Reginald Vell Johnson as well, Stephen. I didn't enjoy him in the first one. I seen at no point. I suppose he was a sort of human linchpin for John McClane in that first movie. He was his connection to the outside world. He was in a sort of, I don't know, a strange situation, stuck in this high-rise building, taking on German terrorists. He was kind of disconnected from reality. This guy, and his frequent little conversations with him, tethered him to reality and got him through this horrible situation. Thankfully, he's not in this movie quite as much.
No.
He's brief, and he has an important role to play. He obviously takes the bloodied fingerprints of one of Stuart's goons who gets killed off in the baggage carousel, and he faxes that, and he then breaks down that this guy's been dead 5 years on the system.
Welcome to the 90s, John McLaughlin, with all his technology.
Yeah, exactly, and that's something I was going to get into too, Stephen. The horribly aged references to 90s technology. It's 1990s.
Yeah,
we've got pagers, machines. We've got fax machines, we've got tasers instead of whatever the hell, pepper spray, mace spray. Yeah. It's just, I'm like, what are you doing? The telephones as well with the huge antennae. I like movies just to try and keep technology out. Yeah. You need to think 20, 30 years in advance that it's not going to age well. Things have drastically improved in maybe a 10, 15, 20 year time frame from the 70s through to 1990. It's going to continue after that. Don't age your movie horribly, man, by putting references to technology in. Yeah. That's something I dislike, but look, they can't really get around it. It's set on planes, it's set in the airport. Yeah. You've got all that prominent technology, but what did you make about Reginald VelJohnson's return? Do you think that he could have had a meteor role, or were you quite happy with that short little cameo?
It would be ridiculous to think that these two guys still had a relationship, with him being a New York cop and him being an LA cop. I know that he did move out to LA. I think it's mentioned, isn't it? Yeah. To be with his wife, but I don't think that this was one of sort of the bugbears for Bruce Willis in this film. Too many comparisons to the original movie and too many connections to the original movie. So I think having Al in there was I think it was just enough. He had enough to do in the film as well. It had actually more important things to do in this film, as brief as it was, than he did in the first film, ironically. But it was almost just a cameo, wasn't it?
And getting tucked into a Twinkie bar.
Yeah, he had a few on his desk. Yeah, about 4 or 5.
Greedy shit.
Yeah. So.
You've ate more chocolate bars in that 20-minute sitting than I eat in a whole day. Al, get your shit together, mate. You're a police officer.
Yeah.
Well, saying you're a pencil pusher at a desk and you're not out in the beat. That gut has to go. But look, he was okay, man. He was palatable in this movie. I thought he was fine. Stephen, what did you make about the exquisite planning that was put into place as well to disable the sort of air traffic control tower? And also Colonel Stewart announcing shortly thereafter that he was here, this is what he was doing. He was shutting down all of the airport and the runways, disconnecting the audio, visual feeds and whatnot. Also, they commandeered the church, and again, the guys go in and shoot the old man. I feel like I can't recall what his line was. It was something about a part of me's dying with this place. Yeah. You're something like you're right, and bang, bang, bang.
Not wrong,
You're not wrong. So they commandeer the church. They also cut. I mean, it was such a cool scene when the runway lights start flickering off and there's widespread panic. That was beautiful. I love that. What did you make of it?
It was what had to be done early on in the film, John, because it's got to set up, obviously, the drama side of an action film as well. So it's interesting to get that very early on. You're talking about the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's complete takeover from Colonel Stewart and the gang. And they are still doing things because they're obviously that. This is what I like about this villain as well. They're always thinking ahead. They're thinking about the backup system. They're thinking about this part of the airport's not been completed yet.
Yeah.
He's already got his goons waiting for.
Yeah.
Not McLean, but obviously the police,
sort of
the airport police or whatever they're called. Whatever they're called. Yeah. So he's always one or two steps ahead of them anyway. That sets up obviously the sort of what do you call that? The escalator, the sort of moving platform thing.
Yeah, the sky bridge,
skywalk.
Yeah, the skywalk.
Something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got it in my notes. I didn't even look.
And that's obviously when we first see Robert Patrick. He's actually in it for a glimpse at first, and you're not really sure if it is him. You say, "Oh, was that Robert Patrick?" This is obviously pre-Terminator 2, so he wasn't the big star that he is now, but it was again, it can't be called a cameo because he wasn't a big star at this point. So it was just a brief appearance from I don't want to say a struggling actor, but an up and coming actor.
Yes, he was a sort of he was an up and coming actor, Steve. It was 1990. Look, you're right what he says about the sort of planning and just him thinking ahead, 4, 5, 6 steps in advance. Obviously, is it Lorenzo, the police chief?
Yeah.
He calls in the SWAT team and whatnot. They are rushing in with their guns. They think they're going to ambush them and take over and extinguish the situation out quickly before also tragedy happens in the skies. John McClane's already, I think...
He's in the air vent,
he's been liaising with the sort of janitor figure.
Yeah.
And he gets into the air vent. And also he has his interaction with Robert Patrick's character and the other guy who name completely eludes me. I don't know who the actor is or nothing. He's just a grunt, essentially. But I love that. I love the setting up of it. I love that about action movies, Stephen. I like just popcorn, standard action movies, flicks, whatever you want to call it, where there's not a lot of meat in the bones of the actual story. It's just these guys going about, big explosions, like a Dwayne Johnson movie. But I really, really enjoy the action genre when it's paired with a nice story. There's some thematical stuff going on under the surface, and there's some nice cerebral planning involved. There was also a little sort of payback to the first Die Hard movie, where you've got the two German guys, one's sort of meticulously taking apart this cable, the other guy just comes in and chainsaws it, or cuts it. They do that as well, but they've got the cables. One's meticulously taking it apart, the other guy just comes in with a chainsaw and takes it apart. And again, it shows you, even though they are one sort of homogenous group, there's little different characters and whatnot and personalities. They maybe approach things slightly differently. I enjoyed the skywalk scene. It was a brief sort of burst of action. There's bodies flying all over the place, there's bullets going all over the place as well. As you did say, Patrick gets killed. I mean, it's very brief. I was stunned when he died, but then I checked the date. It was out in 1990, and I realised this was before T2 Judgment Day. He's not yet a name, but it still didn't lessen the disappointment that this man didn't have a sort of second right-hand man sort of level role in this movie, because he's such a cool guy. He's just got those piercing blue eyes, he's 6 foot, he's some actor. And it was just so disappointing that he get killed off very early on in the movie. But look, he was a goon in it, and he met his end. Yeah. But he had a great moment. The interaction with the police when they come up, he switches the escalator off. One of them mutters something to him. He turns around and says something very cool. I can't recall it. Yeah. Puts a bullet in his head. So he had his little moment in the sun in the movie, and I enjoyed that, Stephen. But look, McLean, he wasn't another air vent. You says that was something that Bruce Willis hated. The callbacks to the other movie. Just the similarities, he hates that sort of repetition. I thought it was pretty cool, because there's great little lines in there, like, oh great, another air event. Yeah, John, see when you look at the Die Hard franchise, in its entirety, you do feel that Die Hard and Die Hard 2 are more connected than the rest of them, and that's the reason why. Now, you can either go down the road and clinging on to references about Nakatomi and etc. and Gruber and all that. And there is a couple of references in with A Vengeance as well, to be fair, but it does stray more away from that sort of theme. And although it's terrorism throughout all of the Die Hard films, they take it in a different direction than the other films. But these two films are so connected and probably more ways than you would wish. And I actually do understand where Bruce Willis is coming from. That was his first action film, Die Hard. That was a film that made him an action hero with a lot of people, and gave him, it became a household name, as an action hero. So you can understand him wanting to maybe flex his muscles in a different way, in a different approach. Maybe a bit more acting, because he was an actor obviously before he did the John McClane role. Was he? And well, he was in Moonlighting. He was a very TV star. But he did a lot of acting before this. Yeah. And he was actually in a downward sort of trajectory, wasn't he? And they actually took a risk on him getting into Die Hard. Yeah. His name was slightly dirty in Hollywood, if I recall. Yeah. Well, I think he wasn't dirty, but he wasn't the first choice. Yeah. Let's be honest, he wasn't the first choice to play John McClane. Who was it you says originally was supposed to? Was it Brando or something? No, Frank Sinatra. Was tied to the book that Die Hard was based on, and he must have been something in his contract, if there was a film coming out based on this book, that he would get first dibs on it. By the time this happened, obviously Frank Sinatra was too old, and he admitted that probably the best thing he ever did, but I wouldn't like to see Frank Sinatra jumping about the Nakatomi in a vest, barefoot, swinging on a fire hose, 20,000 feet up. It's not 20,000, 1,000 feet up in the air. It'd have been terrible, man. Stephen, I'm glad Bruce Willis got the role. He's synonymous with it now. Some of the movies are apparently absolutely shite. I've not seen most of them. I'm just going through this Die Hard franchise as we touch upon them with retro reviews. In my opinion, I think there is only one bad one, and it was the last one. The other 3 and 4 are okay. Is that Samuel? Samuel's in the third one with A Vengeance. Can't wait to see that. And is it Timothy Olyphant? Is that what you call him? The chap from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Plays opposite Rick Dalton in those scenes. He's the villain in the fourth one as well. And it's more about cyber terrorism.
So
Mickey, you are a cyber terrorist.
yeah.
That's still a terrorist.
Another Partridgeism. But
we love Alan
Yeah.
Partridge. We love Steve Coogan. Stephen,
Yeah.
maybe we should do, what the hell was it called? Philomena.
Papa. Oh, I thought you meant Alpha Papa.
Yeah. So Alpha Papa's fantastic
Yeah.
as well. That's something we'll maybe have to touch upon.
Cole Meany's in that as well.
Cole Meany. Stephen, you've took the words
Yeah.
right out my mouth. I was just about to speak about the great Cole Meany, another cameo. He's playing a Windsor Airways pilot. It's British Airways, let's be honest. The livery's there. They've just changed it to the Queen's name. Although some would say it's Mountbatten, she's an old Nazi. Not me, of course. But Stephen, Cole Meany is playing a pilot and he meets a fiery end. I loved this sequence. I thought it was fantastic. It was a great escalation of events. As I says, for the William Sadler villain, a necessary moment in the movie that showed this guy meant no nonsense.
No.
He was here to get a job done. He was here to get this Esperanza guy, this sort of tyrannical dictator from South America. And he would do nothing. There's nothing he wouldn't stoop to get this guy and get away on this plane. It was an amazing sequence. And what I loved most about it was the fact that we had the janitor again, which we'll get into.
But this was in reaction to the Skywalk scenario, wasn't
scenario,
it?
Yeah, because he obviously finds out that he knew Stephen. He was playing them like a fool, man. He knew he was the puppet master. He knew that they would react, and he would have to lay down the law. But it's the fact that McLaughlin runs out to the runway. You think he's going to be a hero again. He's got the flame. He's waving it, but he's lowered the sea level 200 feet. The plane's systems are guiding it right in. It's going to hit the ground before it even knows it's the ground. And he ultimately doesn't save the day. And I thought that was necessary for McLaughlin too. It slapped him down a little bit and made him realise that he isn't some all-action hero. He's fallible and he's in a real fight.
Visually, John, that was very impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah, for the time.
Yeah.
And
really
Stephen, I don't know what it is about movies of this era. They seem to age better than some really bad CG movies which came out a decade later. The likes of T2, Judgment Day, even Terminator.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a combination of practical model making, actual exposure of things happening on a miniature scale, but it looks better. It feels real, it feels palpable. I really enjoyed that scene. I thought it was absolutely superb. And anything that Cole Meany's in, he's such a cool guy.
Apart from that aeroplane.
Yeah, apart from that aeroplane, yes. But also, the stewardess saying as well, well, just like British Rail, we might be late, but we'll get you there. No, you won't. You'll get them straight to a fiery grave like Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen. But I wasn't crying for them. It was necessary. I was on William Sadler's side at this moment. He warned them. Yeah. Don't step out of line or I will slap you down. There's planes up there and they will be coming down if you step out of line. And he did it. And look, I love William Sadler, as I did say, Stephen. Another guy that I really enjoy, because Come to America is one of my all-time favourite movies with the great Eddie Murphy. Yeah. John Amos, of course. McDowell himself, Mr. McDowell. He comes in, he's a military general. I can't recall his actual name at the moment, but...
I'll bring that up, John, I can't remember myself.
He comes in with a platoon of military platoon, an army platoon. Yeah. Because obviously this... General Grant, this plane coming down and I presume 250 odd people or something dying, that's escalating things quite a bit. So they bring the army in, this guy comes in, he starts laying the law down to John McLaughlin, he starts laying the law down to everybody. I was never fooled with this guy at any point, Stephen. Also, later on in the movie, there's a sort of shocking twist, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Blanks.
Blanks. But Amos is great, man. He's great in the role. He has an absolutely stupendous line to the little shithead copper who's Lorenzo, the chief. Yeah. He slaps him down something beautiful. I'm actually going to say the line now because it was fantastic. Yeah. What is it? Yeah, so I'm trying to find it. Lorenzo, shut the F up and do something useful. Why don't you go and close a street or something? This little guy was just like a little Hitler. He was banding the orders about, just continually treading on McLean's toes. And for the Amos character to just, it was magnificent. I loved it. I laughed my head off.
I loved the way that, what was his name again? The
Lorenzo.
Chief, Lorenzo. Yeah, I love the way he looked at McLean as if, are you going to help me out here? Are you going to back me up? And McLean's just looking as if, bye, you know.
And I thought you were an asshole. But I am, but I'm just your kind.
Yeah, there's some great lines in the wrong place at the wrong time as well, John. Yeah, was one of they used that in the trailer. I always remember that. I don't know if that was they knew they were going to do a trailer for this film, and they had to squeeze that line in there because it was just perfect. It was a perfect trailer sort of dialogue, you know. Yeah. But John Amos, convincing as a colonel,
general,
a general. He was, you know, and just hard hitting, you know, and again. He's coming from what I know, comedy. You know,
that?
Yeah,
it's 2 years earlier.
And again, seeing him in this role though, John. Yeah.
He was kind of chubby.
Yeah.
I know he looks like a military sort of guy.
It was built like a brick, you know what.
Yeah.
And he was just perfect for this role. But you're right, John, there was something about the setup of this character and his connections to Colonel Stewart. There really was, you know, and
I taught him everything he knew.
It was too obvious. It was far too obvious, you know. He was going out his way to make it look like he didn't like this guy, you know, that he basically a sort of Kylo Ren Luke relationship, you know, that he'd been went off the tracks. But Johnny Amos is a fine actor, John. It's amazing to think that he's actually going to be appearing in the next Come to America film. So amazing.
I'm looking forward to that movie, Stephen, more so than I could ever have thought when it got announced. I thought it was a terrible idea, but Eddie Murphy's just back, man. That guy looks as though he's magic now.
Yeah.
But Stephen, we had an on-off plot MacGuffin, I've called it, situation in this movie. And it's also the airport janitor.
Marv.
Marv. Every time John McClane encounters an issue where he has a door slammed in his face by officialdom.
He's no Argyle.
Yeah. Or if he can't get to a certain situation.
Do you remember him? Do you remember Argyle?
No, what was that?
He was the limo driver in the first
movie.
Yeah,
but at least he sat in a basement, Stephen, for the whole movie then. He had to spring into action. He did what was necessary. He took out, I think, the other sort of... one of the goons.
Marv just went around quoting wars, didn't he?
Yeah, he quoting wars and having blueprints all over this little dank room of the airport, which just so happened to thrust McLean into the right place at the exactly right time so he could have a confrontation with certain individuals. It was a convenient plot MacGuffin. That was one little thing that slightly annoyed me, but the character itself was pretty interesting. He was funny. He had some great little scenes. I think he drove McLean to the police station, and he was slightly eccentric, essentially. And then obviously Esperanza as well. He pops up, he kills the people on the plane. Who's going to fly it?
This sequence always makes me laugh.
Yeah. I mean, I think the pilot says, "Who's going to fly it? That's not your issue or something." I can't recall. That's not for you to worry about. He flies it. Obviously, they light up the airport or the runway. Stephen, there's two moments in this which are way more tense than they should be. When you notice Bruce Willis in a Die Hard movie, armed with sort of 2020 hindsight that there's about 5 Die Hard movies. I just made up another movie, Die Hard. You know he's surviving, and yet you're still... My fingertips were in the chair watching him. This guy trying to get out of this grate on the runway as a plane's hurtling towards him, and he's toiling and he's toiling.
Yeah, that's a good scene, that, yeah.
He finally gets out of the way. And then the grenade scene afterwards.
I read a fact about that, actually, that shot. It was filmed in about 6 or 7 different locations, that whole sequence. The ground shot, the plane shot. It might be on IMDb. I can't remember where I picked it up, but apparently so. It's not as straightforward as you think it is, but it was very tense. You know, him. You can imagine the weight of that.
They've been ridiculous.
You know, that the hatch. You know, just on his back. You know, just. What iron or something like that? I don't know what it was.
I think it was iron, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then, you know, those big wheels coming towards him. But it was a good shot. It was a really good shot.
And then we have the scene where obviously Esperanza, he gets him, kind of briefly holds him hostage. We've got Stuart's men come, just shower the plane with bullets. He manages to shoot Esperanza. I'm trying to burp and speak at the same time. And we get an equally sort of...
Shoots him and says, sit down.
Yeah, sit down. Well, he's going to sit down. He's just been shot. McLean, come on. He locks himself in the cockpit to get away. And then all the grenades getting flung in. Another tense scene. And one of the most ridiculous shots in any action movie ever. Him ejecting out of this cockpit before it blows up with the grenades. And the sort of first person shot of him third person zoomed in shot following him into the air. It was terrible, man. I speak about this movie and some great effects. That was not good effects. But again, it just shows you this guy is just the most luckiest guy on the planet.
He calls him that, "You're lucky."
Yeah. He says something else as well. McLean, I assume it's you in there. You're quite the little soldier. Consider this a military funeral. That was a great line from Sadler. He has some really good lines in there, incidentally. When he's masquerading as a controller and he's speaking to the pilots and whatnot, he's got a confidence about him.
Yeah.
You can tell this is a guy. Right in the very first shot, Stephen, we never spoke about it. The watch goes off or the clock goes off. He's regimented. Yeah. He's a man that knows his shit. He's here to do a job. Yeah. But he's just, as I said, he's got presence about him. So that was a great line. It was 2 really tense scenes that shouldn't have been tense at all in 2020. But they were.
Yeah.
And I suppose that shows a good movie that's been made well.
Yeah.
You're feeling that the character's in a precarious situation.
Fort Wan has just said, "Hi guys, I'm back. Remember me?" Yes, we do. We do remember you, chap.
We do,
so
yes.
Hang in there. We're talking about Die Hard 2, Die Harder. We're kind of halfway through it at the moment, but you
Die
can
Harder.
obviously watch it in playback. But
I'm dying here with the heat in this room, Stephen.
so
Jesus,
it's like the
suffering.
Sahara. My throat is as dry as a badger's. Anyway, that's a private joke. We'll move on, John. We'll move on. We're talking about William Sadler's lines in this film. He has got some classic lines. In fact, I think there's more quotable lines in here for Sadler than there was, obviously, for the Hans Gruber character. Don't know why. I think they just upped their game because it was a sequel, like you do.
Because he was American, Stephen.
Yeah.
She can say more lines. Gruber was obviously an Englishman playing a German, so it's quite hard. Even then, he had some amazing lines as well, didn't he, Gruber?
Yeah.
I'll just go back to the Jules shot there, Stephen. I don't know why I went to you. I always like to speak over you anyway, so it's pointless. But you're right, there's some great dialogue in here. And a really good cast as well, Stephen. I don't know what you made about this cast. How do you rank this cast, maybe next to the first one? I feel like the first one, the primary figures were maybe better. The likes of Gruber was better.
Yeah.
But the overall cast in the sequel seems to have upped the ante quite a bit. John Amos and whatnot.
Yeah, you've got to take yourself back to the time as well. I was about to say Hans Gruber. Alan Rickman wasn't a well-known actor at this point. I think this was his first Hollywood film, which is unbelievable when you think about his performance. But Bruce Willis was not an action hero either.
No.
You know, but when you look at the cast in Die Hard, and you look at, take yourself back to 88. I know you can't because you weren't born yet, John, but it wasn't really
a twinkle in my mother's eye.
apart from the FBI agent who was in the Goonies, I can't remember his name. There wasn't any sort of big stars in that film that I can recall.
No.
We look at them now and go, they're big stars. And it's the same for Die Hard 2. Robert Patrick wasn't a household name. John Amos, you could argue, was a household name at this point through various films that he was in. William Sadler, again, not an upcoming... Well, he was an upcoming star as well, the same as Bruce Willis at this point. But the cast is bigger in this film. There is a bigger cast. And now, 30 years on, can't believe this film's 30 years old, but you can look at this cast and you can actually say, that this has probably got a more impressive cast than the first film. Yeah,
in hindsight it has, Stephen. And I really enjoyed the cast, even though they were mostly up and coming. They all had their unique roles and they filled them very well. Very well cast movie. Amos was great as the General, whose name again's completely eluded me. I clearly get great memory when I'm doing these shows. Sadler was absolutely stupendous, as I did say, as the villain. It's just they got that right. I says it before, I watched the guy primarily in Shawshank. Never in a million years could I have ever... Grant. Could I have pictured this guy playing a villain in an action movie, but he's just perfect.
Yeah.
And the casting director and also the director themselves, they have to take a bow, tip their hat to them, because they got it absolutely bang on. Stephen, the church confrontation scene though, Amos, as I said, he slaps a little fat cop down in my notes. It was Lorenzo I was speaking about. He might
little
not be
fat
that
cop who sold his soul.
Yes, little fat man who sold his dream. Chubby little loser. We've got James Bond-esque snow speeder.
Yeah.
Action sequences.
Out of the blue.
Yeah, it's like what's his face? I always get it wrong. Roger
getting
Moore.
one wrong.
Roger Moore.
It's Roger Moore.
Roger Moore. I was about to say Roger Daltrey again there, Stephen. I'm bringing the Who into it. Roger Moore on the ski, sort of. They call me the Seeker. But yeah, what did you make about this sequence? We've got treachery in here. We've got General Grant turning sides. A great shootout sequence. The booby trapping all of the technology and
Do you know
church.
something? There was something about those blanks in the cartridges were highlighted blue. You actually see a scene in the church where they change one of the guys takes the red cartridge out and replaces it with a blue one, and you're like, why are you doing that? It's so obvious. It's just so obvious this is a setup.
I was confused why they even had them on. It was clearly to distinguish what was the blanks and what was real bullets.
Yeah,
so,
but they don't have to show us that. Exactly. That kind of kills the sort of suspense and obviously the twist. But well, for me it did.
For me
the snow speeder chase. It's like another movie. It's. it's great. Don't get me wrong. It's a good sequence. It's action packed, but for most of the film, you're in that airport, and then all of a sudden we're out in the woods and snow speeders, and the pace is more frenetic, than the rest of the film.
And clearly a body double on the speeder. That was not Bruce Willis. Not a
We
chance.
talked about body doubles last week and Stir Crazy, didn't we?
Yeah,
it wasn't as bad as that.
It wasn't as noticeable,
yeah.
but certainly a body double. Stephen, I thought it was crazy. I thought of Bond, I thought of Partridge again. Whole lot of Partridge-isms in this review tonight. But I just thought about it when he's jumping over. It was so unrealistic. I'm like, what is going on here? In a movie where we have planes crash landing on runways, fire leading the way for other planes to land, the snow speeder jumping over the hill was the most unrealistic moment in the entire movie for me. But it was a great scene. Again, it showed you that Grant was in cahoots with obviously Stuart and whatnot. They went off, and this really lit the fire for Lorenzo. He finally grew a pair of knackers and decided to join the fight with McLean, and they finally got this sort of confident. Well, he didn't really. It was all McLean again. Lorenzo, did Lorenzo do anything at the end of this movie?
He shouted a lot.
Yeah, he shouted a lot. It was really McLean, but it was sort of the charge.
I liked the way he sort of packed his gun. Let's get this son of a bitch or something.
He walked
and
into
then
the
he does
office.
nothing. Sat down and had a donut.
Oh, he ripped up the obviously the parking ticket for McLean at the end and nilled that so he could go home and please the mother-in-law. So that was something. That showed that he wasn't a complete tosser. Although his brother, he was a really little, I don't know, sort of Danny DeVito, little Hitler. Yeah, cantankerous shithead. We call it wee man syndrome here, little man syndrome. Very angry, very small. But Stephen, the finale. This brings us into the finale.
Yeah.
Esperanza and Stuart and the gang, they all get into the Boeing 747 in the big hangar.
Smoking cigars.
Yes, smoking cigars.
Yes.
They're having parties in the back, sipping champagne and whatnot. They're ready to fly off into the sunset. All a happy, merry little bunch. But McLean's got other things in his mind. He goes out.
On the helicopter.
On the helicopter.
Yeah.
He doesn't like flying, but he jumps out of a helicopter onto a plane's wing. If that's you not liking flying, McLean, then I'd love to see you liking flying. You'd be up the front flying the actual helicopter. Jesus Christ. But again, it was a great little action sequence, and it sets up one of the most annoying parts in the whole movie for me. I despair when this happens in an action movie, any movie, where there's fighting with your protagonist against multiple antagonists. We've got the General, and we've got Grant and Stuart. I was about to forget his name again there. Stay off that drink, the demon drink. It's mangling my brain. That and the aspartame and the iron brew extra I had earlier. It's not a good combination. General Grant and Colonel Stuart go out to confront, because obviously McLean lands on the plane. His jacket fouls the flaps. They can't take off until they deal with him. And obviously Esperanza says to them, look, you can't shoot. It's fully fueled. And there's a convenient little fuel compartment on the wing as well for him to let all the fuel out. But Stephen, I hate it when the protagonist fights the two antagonists one by one.
Yeah, just
the General jumps out and fights him. When he's done, we've got Stuart watching. Yeah, he's watching from the doorway, letting him fight on his own. And then he comes out once he's died. It's like, come on, you two could overpower him easily. And then that's the end. You can fly off it. Make for a terrible action movie, but it would be more realistic.
Yeah,
but we've just talked about snow speeders.
Yeah, but there's a lot of exposition in this film anyway. You got it when McLean was muttering about, I'm sure I had a clear shot on him, when he picks up the blanks.
Yeah.
And also again with the, this Esperanza, is it you call him?
Esperanza, yes.
When he says you can't use a gun, why not? If you're a good shot, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And these guys are military trained, so
a general and a colonel.
It doesn't really matter. They're not going to miss him and hit the plane, but it would make a rubbish story if they just hung out the door and just shot McLean off the wing.
Yeah.
And it would make a rubbish story if the two of them went out and took him on, because the two of them are military trained. There is no way John McLean could have beat both of them at the same time. He's very lucky actually to. Well, he doesn't beat. He doesn't beat
General Grant.
He doesn't beat.
No, he doesn't beat Colonel Stuart. Yeah.
Grant's another thing, but he's an older sort of military trained guy. He's borderline retired.
Yeah.
When McLean's at his peak physically as well. So he's mincemeat. Yeah. He's mincemeat. It's a good scene,
It really is.
But you're right. How many times did they show you that shot of the fuel sort of thing.
We've got a fuel ejector on that wing there, guys.
Let's make sure he lands over there before he falls off the plane.
Yeah, exactly. Stephen, look, what I will say about the sequence, it was very well choreographed, the sort of action and whatnot. We see that Sadler had done maybe some extensive martial art work for this movie, because he's doing lots of spinning kicks, really impressive high kicks. Bruce Lee would be proud of some of these manoeuvres. He's also really in great shape, and that was a necessary sequence for him, because he's probably put blood, sweat and tears into training for it, for a brief little 2-minute scene. But it's also great for another reason. As you mentioned, he becomes mincemeat General Grant, and that's going to bring me on to another little interconnected point I wanted to make. There's a trio of really gruesome but really enjoyable deaths in this movie, and I just want to get your personal favourite out of them.
Okay.
Early on in the movie, McLean follows the two baggage handlers into the baggage handling area.
Yeah.
One of them meets a gruesome end. He gets his head sort of caved in the baggage carousel. He gets it caught and shocked.
Yeah.
That was immensely enjoyable.
Yeah.
We have the icicle stabbing in the eye death. Again, immensely enjoyable as a sort of battle of wills with the blade. He takes the icicle, stabs him right in the eyeball. And then we have General Grant being turned into a sort of chili con carne in the engine of the plane. What was your personal favourite? I have to say, for me, it would have to be the plane engine. That's
I think so, just because it's the climax of the movie. But the icicle one I actually forgot about. That was pretty neat. You know, this film, as gruesome as they are, it doesn't actually show you anything. It's like a before and after shot. You know,
it's like the blood on the engine.
Yeah.
Esperanza looking back.
You're basically just imagining what that would be like, you know, and it's horrendous. It's a horrendous death.
You'd wish to die.
Yeah.
Because if the legs cop and you land on the ground, then basically a stump, you know.
So I would say that one, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose you could get prosthetics though, so it wouldn't be all too bad. You'd prefer to live in this prosthetics. Look, I bet Lorenzo would have liked that, so he could grow a little taller. But look, Steve,
grow a little pair.
Yes, grow a little pair. Yeah, well, that as well. But you can't really get prosthetics for that, or can you? Lord knows. I'm not going down the mucky sort of depths of transplants and prosthetics. I suppose you can do anything these days. But Stephen, favourite performance and or character, before we get into the sort of crucial moment of the finale. Favourite performance, I mean, it's really
Marv.
Marv's great. I have mentioned best supporting characters. Marv is quite a supporting figure in this movie. He allows McLean to get into positions to obviously make things happen in this movie, so I suppose he's a good little supporting character. He is eccentric, he throws in some good lines. But best performance, it's got to be Bruce Willis again. It's a toss-up between him and William Sadler for me. Oh shit, there goes the beer bottle.
I liked Richard Thornton, the character Richard Thornton on the plane. I thought,
we've not even spoken about Dick.
Well, we should probably briefly talk about him, John, because he was such a memorable figure in the first movie, and the way that Holly hooks him at the end of that film still cracks me up. It's just his reaction of holding his face and looking at the camera. Did you get that? It's the same in this when he gets tasered. You know, you've probably got a line there, John, but it's just...
Yeah, I've got the...
He's such a drama queen, isn't he?
Yeah.
He was in Ghostbusters and he basically played the same type of role, an annoyance, you know, and I think that's the kind of... I can't remember the actor's name now.
It's William Atherton.
Playing Thornburg. It's basically the same character. I think he just likes playing these type of roles.
Stephen, it's like Ed Skrein. The guy who played the villain in Deadpool, he just has a knack for playing those sort of annoying, sort of nefarious antagonists. Not just antagonists, but they're shitheads with it. Yeah. There's something about their demeanour. They're annoying little shits. I mean, he's not an antagonist in this. He's just sort of... He's comedic levity at times, because he's clearly absolutely terrified on this plane when he realises he's using the sort of transponder, that things are not what they should be down in the ground. And then he's having his moment in the sort of limelight, live reporting what's happening from the plane, causing absolute carnage in the airport. Exactly what they wanted to avoid. He's causing it just for a moment in the limelight. He's in the plane toilet. I have to be sick. And it's the way that... What's the wife's character's name again? Holly. The way she goes in and tasers him. And I think his words are, if this is to be my last performance, she tasers him and says, "Amen to that, Dick." And it's just the way he's lying like that. I thought he was dead. I genuinely thought he was dead, but he's such a shithead character. But there's something about it. The way he carries it, he is annoying, but he's kind of funny as well.
You do have to take him into consideration when you're talking about supporting characters. I think he's up there. But for me, I think probably the obvious choice is obviously John McClane. I think Bruce Willis naturally has to carry the movie. He's the main character in the film. Supporting characters, William Sadler for me, actors. William Sadler for me is probably, he's the best supporting actor.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
It's a no-brainer. Whereas I think when we talked about this, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were talking about Die Hard, it was the other way around. We actually,
it was Gruber, I think. Yeah, it was a standout, and then we had Bruce Willis as McLean.
Yeah,
obviously the protagonist, the primary character. He was sort of the second best performance in the movie.
Yeah.
Stephen, I agree. Look, it just has to be McLean in this movie. There's something about him. He's just a great action hero. Willis, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
As you says, Die Hard was the first attempt. What year was that? 87?
87 or 88.
Yeah, and then this is the second attempt. He doesn't like the movie, but he's absolutely brilliant in it. Yeah. He's doing all sorts. He's flying out of windows. He's flying snow speeders off of ditches and whatnot. He's running about shooting and doing all sorts. He's taking down planes single-handedly. And that gets me on to the final moment in the movie. Yeah. It is absolutely superb, Stephen. Joking aside, the way that he ejects the fuel, they think they're away scot-free, and he says, hip, what is it he says? Hi.
Yeah, yippee-ki-yay.
Yippee-ki-yay, that great line that he also says to Hans Gruber at the end of the first movie, and then he lights the fire. It's the way they flame. You're thinking, is it going to catch the plane? Yeah. The plane lifts off, you think they're away, and it follows it right up into the air, and it just kaboom. Yeah. It's stupendous.
It's a good I actually prefer the ending to this one than I do the first movie.
But Gruber falling from that, it's an
iconic shot, John, but the actual build-up and the way it was put together, back in 1990, that would have been a very hard sequence to accomplish. So you've got to appreciate it from that level in hindsight,
Absolutely, and then obviously it sets the tone for the actual saving of the day. McLean, and obviously the trail of fire. That allows his wife's plane to come in, and all of the other planes holding position in the sky to follow the fire right in. Yeah, apart from Windsor, they move on from that very quickly, don't they? Yeah. The emergency services go out, but I suppose that will bring us on to maybe the next bit. Technical stuff we'll get into after that as well, but I suppose that is technical, Stephen, because the movie flowed so well that it never really lingered on any one moment.
Not at all.
It seemed to get it perfect for me. It was perfectly edited. Tonally, it was great. Pacing, it was just perfect. It was frenetic from the very first moment all the way through. I enjoyed it. It was 2 hours, and they're saying it was 2 hours and 7 minutes, but I think it was just under 2 hours when you take into account. When you take into account credits and whatnot, just under 2 hours. And we've seen the likes of George Lucas in the past just speak almost in wonder of the 2 hour movie, how he would have done anything in the world to get a perfectly edited and sort of perfect flowing Star Wars movie edited down to 2 hours. He thought that was the magic number. And there is this. Some movies have to be 2.5 hours. Like a Nolan movie simply has to be 2.5 hours long. Some have to be 3 hours if you're telling a ridiculous multi-generational story like The Irishman. Other movies like this, and maybe horror movies, really good horror movies, It Chapter 2 aside, have to be around about 2 hours. It's just perfect. And it flowed beautifully, and I guess that sort of Cole Meany fiery death situation, that's a perfect example of it. They blow up the plane, add some levity, emotional levity. It shows you that Colonel Stewart means business, but it just moves on quickly.
Do you know something? When you mentioned Cole Meany there, I don't even know if he's credited in this film. I think he's uncredited. I think this was way before he was doing Star Trek and stuff like that.
Yeah, he was O'Brien.
Yeah, so another up-and-coming actor at this point.
Yeah, and obviously, because Con Air would have been 96.
97,
so that was quite a bit later. So you're right, he probably was up and coming. It's incredible. You're right, Stephen, with the cast. In hindsight, how good a cast it is. But at the time, it probably was really cheap, and they assembled it, and it was probably only Bruce Willis who commanded the big wage, maybe the wife as well. It was a really up and coming cast, and it's incredible looking back 30 years later. Just how good a career all these actors went on to have. But other technical stuff, I don't know if you've got anything to say about the score. It was okay. It just blended in. It was
typical
there.
Action film, isn't it?
It was Oliver Wood. He done Face Off. He done Woody. He done Step Brothers. He Born Ultimatum. So he knows what he's doing, I suppose. But it was okay. Wasn't stand out by any means. That was the cinematographer. I'm talking absolute crap here. And the cinematography, which I was about to get into, was pretty damn good. It was really well shot. I enjoyed the cinematography. I enjoyed some of the close-ups, some of the action sequences. The way it was captured was cool. The composer was actually Michael Kamen. The great Michael Kamen of X-Men, Lethal Weapon, Robin Hood, the actual good Robin Hood, starring Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I mean, I take it back. The score was actually amazing.
No, I don't think. It didn't really stand out for me, John. Again,
Jesus Christ.
some movies you can hum away or whistle away at a good, score or whatever. Die Hard films don't really do that for me. Yeah, I think if you played them in the background, particularly the first movie, I'd go, that's from Die Hard. This one doesn't really stand out to me. There's nothing really memorable.
No, I agree, Stephen. I can't even think of the theme, the main theme. It's not like Mission Impossible. I mean, you've not got it. I suppose the action does everything else. I've not got much more to say about technical. We've really discussed that in depth, I think, for this movie. It's an action movie. It's a sort of 80s vibe action movie, like the likes of, what was that goddamn movie I watched, the sort of Kung Fury, the type of action movie that Hit would sort of parody. Maybe not, maybe it was more Stallone and Schwarzenegger movies for Kung Fury, but it's off the same sort of general gist of those movies. It's one of those old school action movies, so it doesn't have to do all that. But look, Stephen, final thoughts on the film before we round up this review. How do you think this stacks up against the first film? We've really did that. I think there's similarities there.
Yeah.
There's enough distinguishing factors in this movie for it to be different. I think personally, the first movie just tops it because of the Alan Rickman Hans Gruber factor, because he's such a compelling character. He's one of the great villains in cinematic history for me. So that just propels it above, but it's a really good action movie. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, John, I don't really want to compare it to other ones because I know you've not seen other ones yet, but maybe it's something that we can talk about down the line once we've done them all, perhaps. I don't know. But pairing it up against the original movie, it's probably not really fair to do that, but the filmmakers made it that easy to do it, with their constant references to Nakatomi, and the hero from LA and stuff like that, having the Al character back in there, just constant references, even the catchphrase, yippee-ki-yay, having that in there again. I like it. It's a good sequel, John. It's a really decent sequel. I can understand where Bruce Willis is coming from when he's probably wanting to branch out. He's probably maybe a bit insecure about being maybe pigeonholed into the one character. Yeah. But he need not worry. I thought it was a fine film. It wasn't going to top the first movie, not by a country mile. But it was a really good attempt of a good sequel. I
completely agree, Stephen. And now Bruce Willis would give his left nut to get into a movie of the stature of Die Hard 2. Such is the way, Die Harder, the way that his career has now went. Yeah. I'm not saying he's done by any means. He's not John Travolta yet. No one's John Travolta yet. I'll lay off John. John's having some issues just now, personal. I do, joking aside, I love John Travolta, man. Just for Pulp Fiction alone. He's a great guy. In Face Off, man. Loved him in Face Off. Yeah. So I'm not going to do down on the John. That seems to be the done thing just now. It was Nick Cage, now it's John Travolta. But look, Stephen, my final thoughts, I mean, I've kind of did it, but the final thing I would say, again, I just emphasise, this is a dying breed. We don't get action movies like this now in the 21st century. No. We don't have female characters, helpless little precious petals lying on a first class sort of plane, a seat in a plane, drinking champagne, drinking on a fancy, speaking on a fancy mobile telephone with the antennae. But Stephen, there's something about these movies that they're sadly missed. We don't get it now, as I did say. We've got Dwayne Johnson movies, and I love Dwayne. Yeah. But they're hollow. The action movies now, they lack.
They're run of the mill,
The only thing that's really continuing it on and carrying the sort of baton, as the people in America like to say, we say baton, is maybe the Mission Impossible movies, which also were buffed in 94, 95. Yeah. And you get sort of people from back then, Ving Rhames and whatnot, continuing it, Tom Cruise. But they're by and large gone now, these movies, so it's great getting back and watching movies like this. I'm having a whale of a time watching them. I don't know what that means, but I'm having a whale of a time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, John.
We're speaking about 1990 movies, Stephen. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I'm enjoying these Die Hard movies. I'm glad I'm watching them. It's a bit of cinematic history. Yeah. But look, I'm done speaking about it, Stephen.
I've only got one more thing to say, John. There has obviously been a rumour that there is going to be either a film or a television series called McLaughlin, and Bruce Willis is going to be involved in it.
We spoke about that,
Yeah, so there's nothing been said since then. I don't know if I would like to see a television series based on this character in any way. Another film's another thing, because that last one, I think it was the fifth one, was absolutely... Well, listen, I'm not going to say what I think about that just now. I think I have actually said that.
Steve, we have to start reviewing some terrible movies, by the way.
Well, that's one of them, John. But I'll hold back until we do it because I want to really just go hell for leather with that one. So out of the 5 films, that is the worst. Yeah,
look, Stephen, I can't speak because I haven't seen them. As I did say, first time I watched Die Hard was a month and a half, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
First time I watched Die Hard 2 was last night. We really do. We have to start picking some truly awful movies to review just so we can full on Stuckman them. We'll never get full on. What is that amazing Stuckman one where he just breaks it down? Hilariosity. We'll never get to that man's brilliant analytical level, but we have to pick some truly shite movies just to absolutely wreck them from top to bottom. And I suppose we'll get to that at some point. This coronavirus nonsense isn't dissipating, isn't going away anytime soon. So we'll go through all the classic retro movies. But Stephen, we'll be back next Friday for Train to Busan, and also we'll be doing more movie news shows. If you guys have got anything to say, incidentally, I'm speaking to Stephen and not to you, if you are watching this, if you've got anything to say, you want to share your views on Die Hard 2, what your thoughts are on it, what's your thoughts on William Sadler's Colonel Stewart, how does he rank against the great Hans Gruber and Alan Rickman's performance, what do you make about these movies, these 2 movies, what's the best for you, what did you make about it in general? If you've got anything to say about our review, anything at all, you can comment below and let us know what your thoughts are down below in the comments section. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed, and you can subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this in the future. If you do, as I did say, you'll see us reviewing Train to Busan, a movie we somehow missed from 4 years ago. It's an absolute cult classic, and you'll see us discussing all the various news stories in the world of Hollywood. But look guys, until then, bye bye.